One.
Hey everyone, this is Sanjeev here.
And hi everybody, this is Arpita here, and here we are to compare two daily newspapers, The Hindu and Dinakaran. So let's start a comparison.
So the number of pages and the color. Dinakaran has 12 pages in total and it's all in color. There's no black and white.
Whereas in Hindu, there are 17 pages and all are in color.
So we have to know the history about these newspapers, right? So let's go over the history about Hindu first.
So the Hindu was founded in Madras on 20th September 1878 as a weekly newspaper by what was known as then the Triplicate Six, consisting of four law students and two teachers, started in order to support the campaign of Sir T. Muthuswamy Iyer for a judgeship at the Madras High Court and to counter the propaganda against him carried out by the Anglo-Indian press. The Hindu was one of the newspapers of the period established to protest the policies of the British Raj. About 100 copies of the inaugural issues were printed at the Srinidhi Press, Godstown, on 1 rupee and 12 annas of a borrowed money. Subramanian Nair became the first editor and Veera Raghavacharya became the first managing director of the newspaper. Over to Sanjeev. Let's know the history of Dinakaran.
So Dinakaran is a Tamil daily newspaper published by the Sun Group. The newspaper was originally launched by DMK. It's also known as Dravida Munnetra Kalagam. The party politician KP Kandasamy in 2005, Kandasamy's son KPK Kumaran sold the paper to the Sun Group. Dinakaran today is published by Carol Publications Private Limited, which is part of the Sun Group. Carol Publications is wholly owned by Sun Group's chairman Kalanidhi Maran and his wife Kaveri Kalanidhi. According to the Indian Readership Survey of 2017, the newspaper, the readership of 20.08 million, is the second most widely read Tamil newspaper and ranks 14th in newspapers across languages. It's the sixth most read regional newspaper in the country. So let's go to the comparison in detail. Let's go to the comparison of headlines.
So we see in the headlines of Hindu, we see China says disengagement at most localities along LAC is complete.
Well, if you see the headlines in Dinakaran, it says that தமிழகத்தில் கொரோனா பரவல் தீவிரம் மேலும் ஒரு மாதம் ஊரடங்கு நீடிப்பு. It actually means in English that there is the corona, spreading of corona in Tamil Nadu is getting worse, and is there going to be an extended lockdown? If you see the headline in Dinakaran is very short and sweet,
Whereas you see in the Hindu, it's quite long, I would say. But then at the same time, the news consists as the headlines of the first page. We see it's an international news. It's not of something like.
Well, if you see in
Dinakaran,
Dinakaran,
which
it's
is
not more
local
for
news.
international. Let's talk about international news.
We see in the Hindu, the international news talks about Malaysia's former PM gets 12 years jail.
Well, if you see in Dinakaran, the news says that Malaysia முன்னாள் பிரதமர் நஜீபுக்கு 32 சிறை, which is actually a wrong news. Maybe it may be a printing issue or something, but it's wrong because we checked in other
When we read
sources that it's just 12 years.
and it's maybe wrongly print in Dinakaran says 32 years, which is a little bit too much of imprisonment.
And if you
Now
see
let's
in
move
Hindu,
on to the next one, which is the classified. In the Hindu, we
oh,
see that the classified content. Yes, go on.
yeah, go on, go on, go on.
So we see in the Hindu, the classified content is seen as the opportunities. We see that the opportunities place is given a very small space, and the rest of the part is given to articles.
Well, if you see in Dinakaran, there are lots of classifieds going on there. There are different ads in there, and what's more interesting here is if you see in Hindu, the title of the classifieds are mostly in black, whereas if you see in Dinakaran, it's in orange, so it makes the audience more engaging to read it. So let's go to the next topic.
We see the regional news. In the Hindu newspaper, we see several newses over here. The first news talks about Kerala hospitals to screen non-COVID 19 wards. Down we see reconsider CET decisions, which is of Karnataka. And then we see by side Telangana app for COVID-19 patients. And above, just above that, a small space talks about TN, which comprises of the whole southern regional news.
Well, I searched for regional news in Dinakaran, but I couldn't find anything. But there was just a page where there was small issues which are happening inside Tamil Nadu which were discussed. For example, there was the video call of MK Stalin there. Lots of small political things happening in the newspaper. And as Dinakaran is the owner, like Sun TV owns Dinakaran, there is a slight bias to the political party. That's my opinion on this.
Maybe we could say that. Now, moving on to the further topic, we see the next topic is local. I've taken the Hindu newspaper of the Delhi. So we see basically right now as the 12th results have come out, we see that everyone is discussing about the DU, Delhi University. So as well said, it's talking about HC unhappy as DU. Center fails to spell out exam preparedness.
Well, if you see in Hindu, the content is more elaborated and more structured. Well, if you see in Dinakaran, it's more short. There are small issues like water problems, the corona cases, the opening of new COVID wards, and it's not really interrupted and described clearly. So let's go to the next news.
So the next news is sports and entertainment. We see in the Hindu there's an elaborated content for the sports and there's a dedicated page for it as well. So in there news talked about all kinds of sports, but especially about cricket because that's the favorite sport of India.
Well, if you see in Dinakaran, there's a page called Vartagam and Vilayat. But if you see like sports news, there's nothing. There's just a small orange box with the picture of Ravichandran Ashwin and just like 5 to 6 lines about him. So there's not much of importance to sports, and I don't think there's news much, but there is very less about news about sports in Dinakaran. And let's talk about the writing styles of both the newspapers. Like I could say that Hindu's writing style is more appropriate, more factual, and it's represented very nicely. And the words they use, the vocabulary they use is very nice. But you see, Dinakaran is more blunt. They just use simple words and normal words, which is like more apt to the common man.
No, but whereas you see, the Hindu newspaper's rate is around 10 rupees per newspaper, and that too when you go on weekends, it goes to 15. But then when you see Dinakaran, it's just 3 rupees. So you see, it can be accessed by, Dinakaran can be accessed by a public and anybody of any kind of poverty line. Anybody can access to a 3 rupee newspaper, whereas 10 rupees might find a little bit costlier than that.
And let's talk about editorials. Editorials are something very important in newspaper, but I didn't find any editorial section in Dinakaran. But Hindu's editorial section is really good.
And what about the games and comics? Hindu has a huge section for it has a side section for games and comics. You see different comic strips published over there, and then you have crosswords and sudokus, etc. But could we see that in Dinakaran, Sanjeev?
No, we can't see games and comics in Dinakaran. Well, I would say that 3 rupees consists this much and 10 rupees that consists that much. So there's a difference, right?
Yeah, right. Because Hindu is a newspaper for the intellectuals, whereas Dinakaran is a news for the public.
And I could also see like one page ads or 2 page ads in Hindu, whereas I couldn't see many ads in Dinakaran. Just small pop up ads, and it's not much conveying.
We see that Hindu is a newspaper, although it has a higher rate for advertisement. People would prefer printing in Hindu because it's accessed by everyone. Everyone knows about Hindu, but whereas Dinakaran is a newspaper which is only published inside Tamil Nadu.
So hope you
Talking
enjoy the
about
presentation. Okay, go on.
talking about politics, what do you say about politics in Dinakaran, Sanjeev?
There are lots of political issues issued in Dinakaran. Like there was almost like 3 pages related to politics and was kind of boring to read. But in Hindu, there's just one page, I guess. Am I right, Arpita?
I couldn't even find actually a single page dedicated for politics over there. It was a little bit more about, it wasn't biased, I would say. It wasn't about any one
Okay,
politician. It was more about everybody. It talked about everyone, everywhere.
that's really cool.
So I guess here we come to the end of the presentation.
Hope you enjoyed watching us, and thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, guys.